So obviously, you probably won't be able to use it.
No, I've noted your objection. We're going to continue to use it.
So, do you need to say anything at the beginning?
No, but I'm just need to get everybody's names who's in the room. And
Okay, that's William Hogue.
H-O-G-E.
And I object to his presence. He's not a party.
He's running the audio equipment.
Yeah.
are you representing the case or?
No, he's a friend and he's my paralegal.
The Maryland Rule 2412 states that if a deposition is recorded by video or audio tape, the notice shall specify the method of recording. If a videotape deposition...
Again, that's for your benefit, sir.
If the videotape deposition is taken for use
I have
at trial,
heard your objection. I'm not agreeing to it. Now, if you want to stop this deposition, then we can stop the deposition.
No,
And I don't think Judge Mason's going to think that's a good reason to
well,
stop the
all right,
deposition.
whatever. You know, just answer the questions, okay? I'm objecting to him
Okay.
being here, and I'm objecting to the audio, and I'm going to object in front of Judge Mason, okay? You can
Okay.
play your games all day long. This is
It's
what is
not a game.
happening.
It is
No,
simply
it's
verification of
happening.
what
It's already
happened.
started. Okay, let's get down to it.
Okay.
Okay, state your...
Well, you're not on the record,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
All right. So are you representing yourself?
Yes.
Can you please give me an address?
Yeah,
Or do you have
I'll
a
write it
card?
down for you. And if you have trouble reading my writing, I am not even slightly embarrassed if you do, okay? And that's,
Remington?
yeah,
Okay. And do I need a phone number if I need to contact you?
I can give you one. And I would like to review a copy of the transcript when we're done.
Get that at the end on the record, so it's clear on the record.
Yeah, okay.
So before we begin, there's no attorneys present, there's no judge here, and it sounds like this is going to be contentious.
It will be.
I'm going to do my best to keep up. I'm going to interrupt you if I can't. I cannot talk. I cannot take you both down talking at the same time. I'm here to make the best record I can for you. So
Okay.
with that in mind,
Okay.
just keep that in mind. That's the most important.
Okay.
Are we on the record?
Well, I think I have to be sworn in as well, right?
1 second.
Let me get the lady to swear us in.
Oh, you're not doing the swearing, okay.
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay, I don't know why he's getting that, okay. Oh, well. So has he identified himself for the record?
He won't give his name.
He won't give his name.
Due to your history.
My history of what?
Your history of smearing people online and having your
In other
goons
words,
stalk
I'm guessing
people.
you have some kind of criminal record you don't want us to know about, right?
Nope.
You wait for someone to come in? Okay.
All right.
You're swearing him.
Okay.
Well, hold on 1 second. I'm a notary. I could swear in.
Oh,
witnesses.
you are?
So.
Oh, then I'll let you go ahead and do it. All
Okay.
right, that's okay.
My fault. I didn't know that.
So repeat, raise your right hand.
Sure.
Do you hereby solemnly declare or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I forgot to do one thing.
Sure.
Okay, we're on the record.
Okay, we're here in the matter of Aaron Walker versus Brett Kimberlin, Montgomery County Circuit Court, case number 398855B. This is a deposition of Aaron Walker. Please state your name.
Aaron Justin Walker.
What is your occupation?
I'm an attorney.
State your place of residence for the last 5 years.
I believe for the last 5 years I've lived at 7537 Remington Road, Manassas, Virginia, 20109.
Approximately how many blog posts have you written about Brett Kimberlin?
I don't know, sir.
Approximately?
I don't know.
Hundreds?
It'll be more than 200.
Okay. Approximately how many tweets have you made about Brett Kimberlin?
Again, I don't know.
Over 1,000?
Probably.
How many peace orders have you filed against Brett Kimberlin?
1.
How many criminal charges have you filed against Brett Kimberlin?
Well, let's see here. If I'm remembering correctly, there were 2 charges in 2012, and then I filed an additional charge this year. So that'll be 3.
Have you filed any charges that were nollie-prost?
Yes, and as Stacey McCain said in the trial of Kimberlin versus Walker, nolle prost does not mean not guilty. And his colorful way of explaining it is to say, hey look, I've had traffic tickets that are nolle prost, and that didn't mean I wasn't going 85 miles per hour. So nolle prost doesn't have anything to do with necessarily guilt or innocence.
So how many have you had that were nollie-prost?
They were all.
How many criminal charges have you filed against Tatiana Kimberlin?
Only 1.
And what was the disposition of that?
That was nolle prost. And that's worth noting, that was nolle prost after you and her both admitted to all of the conduct I charged you with. I charged you folks with fabricating evidence in this case. And you said in the, oh yeah, it's true what he's saying, that we submitted a document that was different than the original, that was altered from the original. And then you had sworn on the document under penalty of perjury that you did not, that it was a true and correct copy. And these are what you'd said. So you perjured yourself and you submitted false documents to the court. So I filed a charge for obstruction of justice against both of you because both of you signed this. And I said, you committed perjury and your wife apparently committed conspiracy to commit perjury. And that's the basis of the charges. They were admitted to be true by you. And you want to try to pretend that I did something wrong by reporting you.
So they were nollie-prost?
Yes, they were, as I said at the beginning of the answer.
So does that mean that there was no probable cause?
No, absolutely not. As I've said throughout the case, nolle prost doesn't mean innocent.
So
It just means you keep getting hung up on this in this case, and the reason why is because I have to point out that it was terminated, that this case was terminated in my favor. So I point out as nolle prost. I don't say that to say, therefore there was no probable cause. I simply say that to point out that it was terminated in my favor. And you keep trying to think that that means I'm saying that it means there's no probable cause. It doesn't necessarily follow. As I just said, you admitted to the conduct and it was still nolle prost. That's the ultimate proof that nolle prost doesn't mean innocent.
So do you believe that there was probable cause in the complaint you filed against my wife?
You folks literally admitted to the conduct.
How many civil cases have you filed against Brett Kimberlin?
Let's see here. Besides this one, I'm asking you a question. Do you mean besides this one?
No, including
Okay, okay, including this one. I filed 2, and unless you count the peace order as well, because that is a form of civil suit, then that'd be 2 in 2012, and then 1 being this suit, and then of course the peace order as well. So depending on whether you count the peace order or not, that's 3 or 4.
And what were the dispositions of the 2 in 2012?
They were dismissed.
And did Judge Motz state any reason for the dismissal?
She stated I failed to state a claim. That's what most motions to dismiss are based on.
And what about Judge Potter?
Same thing.
Has Brett Kimberlin or Tatiana Kimberlin asked you to leave them or their family alone?
You have asked me to leave you alone. I don't recall any instance where you said leave my family alone.
Has Tatiana Kimberlin ever asked you to leave her alone or her family alone?
No.
Has
Now, mind you, that being said, I have left you alone. You don't have to ask me to leave you alone for me to leave you alone. I'm a normal person. I don't want to. I don't call your house. I don't send you emails unless I have a legal reason to do so. I don't bother you folks. I report on your life, on the criminal things you do, the public acts you do.
Did she send you an email in 2013 asking you not to leave her alone?
I don't recall her saying to leave her alone. What I recall her doing is saying simply that she wanted me to take down some posts mentioning her name. And I said to her, well, this is what I can do. I can initialize her name. Because what the concern she was expressing to me was that people would Google her name and all this mess is coming out between you and your wife in this custody battle would come out all over the place to anyone who searched for it. So I said, this is what I can do. I can initialize it to T. Kimberlin. You know, T. Kimberlin instead of Tatiana. And FYI, just so you know for the court reporter, it's spelled T-E-T-Y-A-N-A. FYI.
Have you discussed Kelsey Kimberlin on your blog?
Briefly, and only to the extent that it's relevant to the story of your continual abuse of the courts and your criminal conduct. You have put your daughter in the center of the stuff. You have put your daughter into an article in the Daily Beasts, the publication that bought out Newsweek. And you did this by putting her on the stand in the case accusing me of defaming you. And you chose to put her in the middle of that. You also made her get on the stand and tell a story about your wife supposedly abusing her. And by the way, that's testimony that Judge Burrell did not credit. You keep dragging your daughter into the middle of this, and then you complain that we talk about her at all, just to the point that you did so. And in fact, when I reported on the two-day trial we had, you know, I just said something to the effect of, you know, I'm not going to talk much about I'm not going to talk much about Tatiana's daughter's testimony, because she didn't really say much that bared on anything. She did say specifically that her father never molested her or anything like that, and thank God that's true if it's true. But, you know, but beyond that, she didn't really say much that actually added anything to the case.
Have you posted pictures of Kelsey Kimberlin on your blog?
Well, before or after she filed criminal charges?
Before or after?
Okay, I never did it before. And as far as after, I would check based on relevance. What is the relevance of any conduct that occurred after May 18th, 2015?
So, what is the answer to your question?
No, I'm asking you. What is the relevance of that?
You can object on relevance, but you
Well,
have to
I'm
answer
objecting on
then
relevance.
answer the question.
Do you still want me to answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. I reported on your wife's false charges, and one of the false claims she made against me was that I had participated in the discussion supposedly about your daughter's breasts. I had not. And I went and I found that discussion, or at least what appears to be that discussion, and I noticed that all this was actually very reasonable. What they were talking about was how you had a music video, or I should say she had a music video, where she wears a very low-cut outfit, and she leans forward into the camera half the time. This is a 15-year-old girl at the time it was published. Who knows how old she was when it was created? And these people felt she was being sexualized. And again, these are third parties, not people I'm responsible for. And so I said, you know, the most ridiculous thing is what they said was not harassing. It was perfectly reasonable. And for that matter, I had nothing to do with it, because, you know, the complaint says that simply I participated in a discussion where it was being discussed. Not that I was discussing them, just that I was somewhere in the same thread on someone's blog, writing a comment. And it's guilt by association, which you ironically falsely accused me of practicing.
Did you post a picture of her and her children's choir on your blog?
No, I posted a video that you folks put on YouTube and allowed other people to embed. And so I embedded it, which is essentially you put a code into the blog and allows a person to play the video right from the screen. And I didn't mention the fact that your daughter was in the video. What I mentioned was the fact that you were in the video and that you were finding an excuse, as usual, to surround yourself with teenage girls. You have a history of at least suspicious behavior around teenage girls, Brett. You have said in an interview with what I think it's called Washington City Paper that everybody wants to, pardon my language, fuck teenage girls. And you claim, oh, I would never do it, but every guy wants to do it. And you had written 2 songs about how much you wanted to do it. And it's enough that, you know, if you're sitting there and you go, I think the parents would want to know about that before that sort of thing goes on, at the very least. And you'd worry about what kind of supervision. I mean, you do understand that you have created a situation where you have created yourself suspicion about your behavior.
Are you familiar with the band called the Beatles?
Yes?
Are you familiar with a song where the lyrics are, she was just 17, and you know what I mean?
I think that was just a very innocent teeny bopper song. She was just 17, you know what I mean? And I saw her saying there at the dance. I mean, that's from the era where they were singing I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Have you ever discussed Kelsey Kimberlin on Twitter?
I don't honestly recall. I might have mentioned a couple posts about her. For example, when it appeared that your daughter had perjured herself, falsely accusing your wife of abusing her, for example. I wrote some posts on that subject, and I may have promoted that on Twitter. I don't think I said her name. I mean, I've never said her name on my blog. Period.
Did you...
Because I don't want people who searches for Kelsey Kimberlin to come up with my blog.
Did you post on Twitter that the reason why Brett won't dare sue us isn't just discovery from him, but discovery from his daughters and their friends?
Yes, this is a perfect example of how you are attempting to criminalize basic litigation defense. At that time we were hearing that you were thinking of suing you for calling you a pedophile based on what your wife had told us, based on what Mark Singer had reported, based on your own words that I just discussed from this article called Jailbird Rock, where you're telling us how much, you know, how every man supposedly wants to sleep with a teenager. And you were getting ready to sue us for being a pedophile. Well, the very natural thing is we get to get discovery on the subject, Brett. We get to find out, you know, these kinds of things. And so it's a very reasonable prediction that you would be so concerned about that possibility that you wouldn't dare sue us. Now, that turned out to be an incorrect prediction. You sued us anyway. But that's your prediction.
So, when you posted...
Sorry, that was my prediction. I misspoke at the end of that.
You said that you posted a picture of Kelsey Kimberlin on your blog.
And you can see right from what you're looking at right now, I obscured her face, I obscured her name. And I just simply posted that to show people that this is a perfectly reasonable criticism these third parties, not even me, was making. To say that this seemed like you were sexualizing your 15-year-old daughter. And that they had a right to that opinion. It's not a crime to have an opinion you don't like, Brett.
Did you state on your blog post, quote, that clearly shows her cleavage, and that's a 15-year-old girl. A normal father would want his daughter wearing something more conservative in that context.
I stand by that statement. I think it is questionable to put your 15-year-old daughter's cleavage on YouTube.
Did you attempt to follow Kelsey Kimberlin on Twitter?
Not on purpose, and I've already testified to this, but I'll happily testify again. What happened was, someone showed me a tweet that seemed a little creepy. I think it was referring to somebody jumping in the pool naked while she's in Hawaii on vacation. And someone said, "Oh, that's a little creepy given the context, especially because you're reportedly a nudist." So we wondered if the somebody was you. And so somebody sent that to me, if I remember correctly. I looked at it, oh yeah, okay, and then I accidentally picked up the phone the wrong way. It's a touch control. I accidentally touched the button. That's it.
And what happened after you accidentally touched the button?
Well, after a few minutes, I figured out what I'd done, and I untouched it and removed it.
Are you aware that she blocked you?
I've heard you guys say it. It wouldn't shock me if she did.
Now, have you visited any of Kelsey Kimberlin's social media pages? For example, her website or her Facebook pages?
Purely in the context of dealing with your litigation, yes.
Have you watched her music videos?
Again, with the exception of that video, "Happy Springtime, Bush is Over." I watched that because someone points me on my own and says, "Oh, that's that guy who did that idiot video." Other than that, generally I only look at that stuff in order to deal with your litigation.
But the question was, have you watched her videos?
And I just answered it, only in the context of your litigation.
Did you watch all of her videos?
I don't know if I've watched all of them.
How many have you watched? Or do you know?
I think around 3 or 4. Are there more?
Now, when you posted a picture of her children's choir on the
I did not post a picture of her children's
or
choir.
a video of her children's choir,
And then I embedded a video. By the way, if you don't like people embedding a video, you can turn off that feature in YouTube.
I'm asking a question. When you embedded that video, was that accompanied with a post that you made?
Yeah, it was in the context of discussing how you constantly find excuses to be around teenage girls.
So, the title, if I'm correct, of the post on Saturday, August 3rd, 2013 was, "For pedophile Brett Kimberlin, it's all about the kids." Is that true? Is that a fact?
I don't know if it was on that date. I do recall a post by that title. And it discussed many ways in which you talk about how much you want to be with the teenagers.
And you said you didn't post a picture of her.
I don't believe I did.
I'm going to just show you this, and I'll give you the whole post. And you can look at that post.
Okay, give me a minute to authenticate then. You know what? I do have to apologize. You're right. I did not remember posting a picture, but apparently I did. I thought I just posted the video.
And
I mean, it's been, how old is that? How many years?
I said 2013.
Okay, so it's been 3 years.
And can you identify Kelsey Kimberlin in that picture?
No, I can't.
So it just so happens that you picked one frame out of all the frames in a video. It has a picture of Kelsey.
That's what she's saying. Honestly, I mean, I've seen pictures of her when she was 8, not too far from that age, and I didn't see anybody look particularly like her.
Have you ever done any blog posts that ask people to pull out the popcorn or get the popcorn, you're going to entertain them or anything like that?
And you're going back to this well again, Fred. Okay. As I said, I think it's important when dealing with somebody as abusive of the legal system as you to be what they call a happy warrior. And so, you know, I try to make it fun as I discuss what you're doing in abusing the system, filing one false criminal charge after another. I mean, you asked me how many charges I filed. We're on number 4 with me, between you and your wife. You filed 2 peace orders.
I'm asking
You filed, no, let me finish. You filed 2 different lawsuits against me, ordinary lawsuits. And in addition to that, you have another one against another set of people where you're making false allegations against me as well. That's the Hutton and Williams case for your reference. And this has been going on since late 2011. Your constant abuse of the legal system, trying to harm me, harm my family,
Okay,
harm, etc. And so no, I'm
asked a
answering.
simple question about popcorn.
And I'm answering. You just don't like how long it's taking. Now, so this has been an ordeal for my family, not to mention the time that you stalked my wife, not to mention all the other creepy things you and your friends have been doing to me for the last few years. Like when your friend Bill Schmalfield invited people to come to my house to harm me.
Gentlemen, one at a time, please.
Yeah, I want an answer to the question.
And you're getting one.
Have you ever...
And so, as I said before, at our case in Kimberlin versus Walker, I try to be a happy warrior. I try to put on a happy face. And so one of the things I say is, let's pull out the popcorn as we point out, you know, what silliness is going on in your latest filings, or how I point out that silliness in my latest filings, or whatever news is going on.
On December 18, 2013, did you write a post that said, quote, "Anyway, I wish there was some way to bring Kimberlin to justice without his elder daughter or any of his family being dragged into this, but Brett has made that impossible. Still, I can limit the damage as much as possible, hence why I will be keeping her name off my blog as well as her younger sister. Other people feel like what Brett has done makes her name newsworthy, and I will respect that view, but I will not follow their approach." Did you write that?
Well, in fact, there was the same post where I also said that we should try our best not to have your daughter suffer, because we reject the concept of the corruption of the blood in America. And it's a good thing we do. We don't judge you by who your father is, even if he's a traitor, even if he's a terrorist. We don't judge you by that. We judge you for you. So whether it's your race, your religion, you are judged as an individual. It's part of what makes America great. And for the same reason, as much as possible, we want to keep her out of it. And as I mentioned before, you keep dragging your daughter into the center of the story. This charge your wife filed has said, in essence, somehow reporting about you somehow harasses her. So because you're in the unique position of having a child who's a minor, somehow you're immune to criticism. You're immune to negative reporting. No, I'm not done. You have created this situation where your daughter gets dragged into the extent she did. And as much as possible, I keep her out. But you don't make that possible. You put her at the center of this. And it's on you, the way that you do this to your family. You have gone to court and read sexually explicit texts, supposedly from your wife's boyfriend, in front of your 2 daughters.
Next question.
This is the behavior you do in front of your family.
Did you also say in that same post, and go ahead, pull up a bowl of popcorn, let Marilyn Midget whine about me saying that again. Brett Kimberlin is going to learn he has drawn even more of the wrong kind of attention to himself.
That's exactly right.
When
you commit crimes, you draw negative attention. You have continually brought negative attention to yourself. I mean, that particular post, I believe, was introducing Michelle Malkin's motion to dismiss in the RICO case. And in one of the grounds for the motion to dismiss was that you forged a summons. And this isn't simply their theory. You admitted you did this.
So, you now admit that you posted a picture of a children's choir on your blog.
Yeah, I mistakenly thought I didn't, but again, 3 years ago, Brett.
And in that paragraph I just read to you, you stated that some of your readers, you respect the fact that some of your readers can...
Actually, I was talking about other commentators. For example, I don't think that Stacey McCain exercised the same discretion. I could be wrong. And that was I believe that was who I was specifically thinking of. That he did not leave your daughter's name completely out of it, and I did. And I didn't want to come off denouncing him. I just said this is my way of doing things.
So, when you...
And for the record, Stacy McCain is a man. I know that might sound like a woman's name, and I forgot that not everybody knows who he is.
When you stated that you would take discovery from Kelsey and her friends, what kind of discovery were you thinking about in that
You know,
context?
seriously, Brett, what do you think's going to happen? You think you can accuse people
I'd ask you a
of
question.
No, I am
No, you're
answering.
not
I'm
asking me a
answering.
question.
I'm
You're
not.
answering
I'm
the
not
other.
asking you to respond. I'm asking you a rhetorical question. What did you think was going to happen? You could sue somebody for calling you a pedophile, and then they would not be able to talk to any of the kids your daughter knows. You think that's how it works? You were charging me with a crime, supposedly, for calling you a pedophile. Excuse me a second. Your charges against me said that I harassed you by calling you a pedophile. And then you expect me to what? Be convicted and go to prison without having any right to see if it really was untrue? Do you think that's how our justice system works?
I asked you a simple question. So, you were planning on asking Kelsey's
I
friends?
was planning again discovery on exactly what you were choosing to sue us on.
But
That's the discussion. If you didn't sue me for calling you a pedophile, I wouldn't have been at all interested in getting any discovery from her. So you chose the ground on which we fight this litigation, and then you get upset that I meet you on the same battlefield.
I'm asking you, what were you going to ask her and her
Specifically?
friends? Yes.
I don't know specifically, but we would have asked her about whether or not there's any truth to what you're claiming is false.
So you were going to ask.
So you were going
to ask her and her friends about sex,
about sex, in
or about
what sex?
sexual abuse, or about
Whether or not they
pedophilia?
have been. Well, you asked your own daughter whether or not she had been
I'm
sexually
asking you
abused.
what you were going to ask.
Well, yeah, but you do see the hypocrisy here. You put your daughter on the stand in front of a reporter from the Daily Beast and asked her about whether or not you've sexually abused her, and now but you think me suggesting that we might ask the same question is somehow harassment. So it's okay if you do it? Is that the theory?
I'm asking you what you were going to do.
Well, I just told you I would get discovery on whether or not you were a pedophile, and I don't know the specific topics how we would have discussed it. We would have been delicate and discreet, recognizing that you're dealing with minors, but we would have discussed the matter in that kind of discreet manner and determine whether or not what you're claiming is false really is false. And by the way, I won that case on truth.
Do you know Patrick Grady?
Yes.
Do you know if he uses any pseudonyms?
I think he was called Palatine Pundit, but I only believe that to be true. That's sort of on information and belief.
Do you know whether he uses the name Krendler? Last name Krendler?
No, I don't know if he does.
Do you know who Krendler is?
No, I don't.
Have you ever represented Patrick Grady?
Yeah.
Are you aware that he runs the Thinking Man Zombie blog?
No, I'm not aware that he does. What I'm aware is that whoever calls himself Paul Krendler appears to run it.
Are you aware that on the Thinking Man Zombie blog that there was a blog post fantasizing about a 35-year-old man fantasizing about hungering over Kelsey Kimberlin at a middle school basketball game?
I'm aware of it. This is, I found out about, frankly, after you brought it up, after there was apparently a data security breach that one of your friends exploited. So it was not meant for public consumption. It's a thought I don't think should be expressed, but nonetheless, all he was saying is that he believed your sense of guilt would drive you crazy at the thought of another man looking at your children the same way that you look at other people's children. Now, I don't agree with that sentiment. I don't think it's something that should be said. But that was the thrust of the post, that they believed that you were a pedophile and that you would be disturbed and frightened at the thought of another person like you looking at your children the way you look at other people's children. So that's what this post that I've read, again, after you made a big deal of it. I never even heard of it until you charged, until you filed a peace order against John over it. And, John should be William Hogue, who is sitting here and observing. And I looked at it and said, this is not something I would have expressed. I guess it's partially why they expressed it initially in private and it became public through no fault of their own. And again, the whole thing was he had a sense of schadenfreude over the thought of you being driven mad by guilt, if you will.
Are you aware that your paralegal, William Hogue, posted a comment on
I'm
that?
going to object based on relevance. What does what he does on that blog matter to this case?
Okay, you've objected to answer the question.
You want me to answer it?
Yes.
I'm aware that the first thing he said after some of that discussion about well, I'll just say I'm aware he made comments.
Are you aware of what the comments were?
I remember that somebody said something like that she was said something like she was 14 years old, and I think he corrected the age because he's a persnickety kind of nerdy guy.
So he posted her age and her birth month. Is that
Possibly her birth month. I know that he said something to correct her age, and that's all I can recall from it.
So you're saying that that this blog post is not public?
My understanding, and again this is upon information and belief, is that it was not intended to be public, and that there was a data security issue that one of your associates took advantage of, and they made it public.
So you said that Mr. Hogue is your paralegal?
Yes, I have said that.
And when you say paralegal, do you mean certified paralegal?
No, you don't have to be certified by anything. A paralegal is just somebody who helps you if you're a lawyer.
Do you pay Mr. Hogue?
No, he does it charitably.
So
I mean, if anything, I guess you could say we pay each other in kind.
when did this relationship start?
I don't remember precisely, honestly, because it was a couple of years ago. It had to have been after July 5th, 2012, when I met him, and I believe it was no later than early 2013, but I can't tell you the exact date. What I can do is I can remember the conversation, which was I was asking him. I don't want to get into the specifics and breach any privilege, but I can say in general I needed him to do some legal research. So I'm hereby deputizing you as my paralegal. And he accepted that.
So he doesn't have a paralegal certificate?
You don't have to have one, Brett.
Well, I'm not asking if you have to have one. I'm saying, does he have one?
No, as far as I know, he doesn't. I've literally never asked the question because I don't care.
And has Mr. Hogue given you any money for between the years of 2013 for any of your legal actions?
2013, or I guess to today?
Yes.
No.
Has he paid for any costs for any filings or copies or mailings or?
Occasionally he mails things for me, and he picks up the tab for that. Occasionally he helps pay for some of the discs of the various hearings, and he also pays for some transcripts as well.
And
he also did pay for your local counsel for your wife when you were having your custody dispute, just so you know.
And so does he pay for the cost of depositions too?
Actually, yeah, he is going to help pay for today's deposition with your wife.
How many court motions have you written or helped write for Mr. Hogue?
I have no idea.
I mean, approximately.
I don't know.
More than 10?
Definitely.
How many legal motions, documents have you written for Tatiana Kimberlin or assisted her with writing?
Total number, I'm not sure, honestly. I do know, let's get to the brass tacks here. I did help her with her motion to continue. I think you know what I mean when I say that. I did help her write her charges. I may have helped her write some other stuff. I honestly don't remember. Again, this is 3 years ago, Brett, so I don't know with that much specificity. Certainly, if you show me something, I can tell you if it looks like something I wrote. I will note that you falsely accused me of writing a custody complaint in your charge. And that's just flat out false. She did that somehow without me being involved. And I don't know if anyone else was helping her, period. I just know she filed it completely without my help.
You mentioned you wrote the motion to continue.
I helped her write it. There's a distinction there.
Somebody typed it. Did you type it?
I typed much of it, and she typed some of it toward the end. What I did was, while I was in Virginia, and see, here's where you get confused here. The legal practice of law, meaning when you're authorized to practice, depends mostly on geography. Although they do note in that letter that the Virginia bar sent your wife, that you can't have brief practice out of state as long as you don't make a habit of it. That being said, I didn't even want to get close to that line, so I wrote most of it while I was in Virginia, and then I said to her, I said, I can't finish this for you, so just finish it based on what happened today at the hearing, because it was right after a hearing where, frankly, she didn't do very well. She was very upset about that. She was, frankly, crying about it. She was in a very upset situation. And so I wrote much of it, but there were some details in there that were specific to what had happened at that day's hearing, and I told her she had to write that part herself.
So I'm just going to show you a copy of this.
Well, then you need to show it and identify it for the record.
I am. So this is the document we're discussing right here. It's,
Okay, we need to put an exhibit number and mark it then, Brett.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Well, then I can't answer a question about a document that you're not putting in as an official exhibit, Brett. That's not how depositions work.
Okay. Well, there's nothing on the back of this that she added. I don't see anything on the back of this that she added.
In what sense?
That she typed.
You know what she typed?
I'm asking you.
Well, I can't, again, if you're not going to put this in as an exhibit, I can't deal with this document. You're not following the correct procedure for a deposition. So you need that to be an exhibit, Brett.
This is, we're going to label it for consistency as Exhibit H.
Oh, I was going to try help, I'm sorry.
Exhibit H, and I'm going to show you Exhibit H.
Okay.
And tell me what she wrote on that document.
Well, it started on paragraph 13, she's talking about what happened that
I'm
day.
asking what she typed.
That's what I'm telling you, paragraph 13. And again, as you can see, because it was something that had to be written after the hearing. So she ended up dealing with that. I think I might have helped her edit it a little bit, but that's it.
So you're saying that the only thing she typed was paragraph 13?
Right, because most of it was entirely predictable. I mean, none of it depended on that day's events. So I wrote it all in Virginia, where I'm licensed to practice.
So you're saying...
And there you go.
Are you saying that she would write that, quote, this is consistent with Maryland family law?
That's not paragraph 13. It's just simply at this hearing it says...
I can show you this again. Paragraph 13 continues on to the next page.
No, I didn't. I'm just telling you paragraph 13. These are not numbered paragraphs.
So one, basically...
I guess she must have screwed up the formatting or something. I didn't even notice that before it was on numbered paragraphs.
So you're saying that she wrote
Paragraph
two
13.
sentences.
Yeah. Like I said, the rest of it didn't depend on specific events of the day, so I could write it ahead of time for her.
Did you want to label this?
And you say you wanted to call that H.
H, please. And I'll be referring to that too in a minute again.
Here?
Yeah, just put it on there, it's fine. Thank you. Let's see. Put that up there. So, you said you wrote a charging document.
I helped her write it.
Helped her. Did you do all the typing on the charging document?
I believe all the typewritten stuff was stuff I'd written based on what she had told me.
And there was also, at this hearing, on the motion for continuance.
And you'll note, by the way, on those charges, there's her handwriting as well.
On the hearing for the motion to continuance, did you also give Tatjana Kimberlin any documents?
I think I gave her a couple documents as I walked in.
When you say a couple, what do you mean?
I don't remember precisely, but I remember I'd written an outline of how she could make her arguments. I'd given it to her before, I believe, and and there you go. And I believe I had actually emailed a copy of it a couple days before, and and said this, you should be practicing this. This is just a suggestion, of course, and you got to think on your feet. But this is how I suggest you handle yourself.
Did you come to Maryland and give her those documents?
I handed her documents while standing in Maryland. Yes.
At the circuit court or district court?
It was the district court.
How many times did you meet with Tatjana Kimberlin in person in 2013?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe it was around 5 times.
Did you come to Maryland to meet with her?
Yes.
Were you with your wife? Anytime?
Sometimes with my wife. Yeah. Actually, always with somebody, and usually with my wife.
Were you with Mr. Hogue?
I met with Mr. Hogue was there when she met me for the first time, and that was actually in Virginia.
And
that way I could speak freely. The rest of the time I had to do this ridiculous dance of saying, look, I can't give you advice while I'm here, but the moment I get back across the state line, I'll call you. And that was actually one specific incident where you had apparently tried to cancel a guarantee that you had on a car loan. You had agreed in February of that year to get that she wanted to have a new car for whatever reason, and you agreed to guarantee her loan because apparently your credit was a little better than hers, I guess. And and then when you were very angry at her, you attempted to cancel, at least that's what she told me, attempted to cancel this loan. And so, and she didn't understand the situation at all. She thought she's going to lose her car or something, get repossessed. So I said, okay, this is what we'll do. I will come to Maryland, you bring out the documents, I'll read them over, and then when I get back to Virginia, I'll share my opinion on what these things mean. And so that's literally what I did. I drove up to her apartment complex where she's staying with her and her boyfriend. His name was Jay Elliott, by the way. And I looked over the documents, and I said, I can't tell you what it is. I'll just say in general I have good news, and when I get back to Virginia, I'll tell you it. And so literally, as I'm going down 495, the moment it says Virginia's for Lovers, it says that sign there, I'm dialing up on my speakerphone and saying, here's the situation. He signed a contract, he can't get out of it that easily, tell him to pound sand, in essence. And that's an example. Another example is with the charges themselves. The only concern your wife ever expressed about the charges was she couldn't believe there was no statute of limitations. I mean, after all, these were incidents in 1996. I'm finishing the question.
Far beyond the question.
I'm finishing. And so she kept raising that as a concern. And so when she was having some kind of printer trouble, So I said, okay, I'll be a courier as well as a lawyer. I'll bring a copy up to you. And I brought a copy up to her. And as I'm handing it to her, she says, are you sure the statute of limitations hasn't run? And I had to say to her, I can't answer the question right now because I'm in Maryland. But I gave you an answer before.
Did Tatiana Kimberlin ever give you any documents?
Give me any documents. I don't remember, honestly. I mean, I think she might have given me a copy of those car loan stuff, for example, or maybe I just, remembered what was in it, because it wasn't that complicated a legal question. I'll just tell you the truth. I don't remember one way or the other.
Did you have any agreement in writing that supports your claim that you represented Tatiana Kimberlin?
No, and they don't have to be in writing,
Mm-hmm.
as I told you last time.
Are you licensed to practice law in Maryland?
Of course I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
You've asked that how many times?
Maybe 3. Do you know a lawyer named John Hodges?
Jim Hodges.
Jim Hodges?
Yes, I do.
Did you, in 2012, did you receive any emails from Mr. Hodges?
I received lots of emails from him in 2012.
Was there an email where he called you irrational?
I don't remember him calling me irrational, but bluntly, he wrote a lot of things during my termination that I think was designed to ward off a wrongful termination suit. You have to have sympathy for the position his clients were in. Okay? They found out that I had 3 learning disabilities. At the same time, they found out that I was under threat from a convicted terrorist named Brett Kimberlin, a man who had set 8 bombs in 6 days. Okay? They were terrified of you, Brett. And they fired me because they wanted to get me out of that office. They fired me and my wife because they were afraid of you. But on the same day, they're also learning that I'm learning disabled. And they had dealt with several months of every time somebody gets fired, no matter how well it's deserved, someone will come back with an EEOC complaint claiming it's because they're white, or because they're black, or because they're Native American, or because they're this or they're that. And they were afraid that I would be filing some kind of unethical, untruthful complaint. Because frankly, it's not against the law to fire somebody because you're afraid of their stalker. Okay? Virginia is an at-will state. You can fire a person for any reason or no reason, as long as it's not a forbidden reason, such as race, religion, etc. So they found out on the same day that they find out about this situation that I have 3 learning disabilities. And so they were afraid that they would end up with at least an EEOC complaint, if not a wrongful termination suit. Especially because I'm a lawyer. And we kind of have a reputation of filing frivolous stuff. It's not a fair reputation, but it exists. And so they were concerned. Now, I never did anything like that, but I fully understand from his perspective what he was concerned about.
Did he state in that letter of termination that one of the reasons was that you were attacking Muslims?
No, I don't believe he said attacking Muslims. It's simply that he was afraid because of your behavior that my life was in danger from Islamic terrorists. And I do have to take exception to how you always talk about Muslims instead of Islamic terrorists. Okay? All I offended was terrorists. The average Muslim doesn't care if somebody blasphemes their faith. They're normal people who understand that that comes with life.
Did you?
Now, that being said, I don't know what that has to do with this case. Because what does my getting fired have to do with whether or not you filed false charges against me, Brett?
Did you ever carry a loaded weapon to your workplace?
Never.
Or outside your workplace?
No.
Did Mr. Hodges tell you that he was not going to allow you into his office because you had a loaded weapon?
I didn't. If he imagined that, I don't recall him saying that. I remember him saying that I had a gun. That didn't mean I had a gun with me while I planned to go to the office. And that wasn't what he was alleging. Just in general, you have a gun. Because he thinks that somehow merely owning a gun in a state where it's legal, by the way, means something bad. And of course, the reason why I had a gun was because of you. You, the person who had set off 8 bombs in 6 days, and by the way, was caught once in possession of an AR-15. You being, of course, the head of NRA Watch.
When did you purchase your gun?
I purchased my original shotgun way back in law school, actually, because I lived in a somewhat sketchy neighborhood. And my handgun, I purchased pretty close to when you started fixating on me.
Was that in 2011, 2010, 2000?
It would have been either late 2011 or early 2012.
Was it after you were terminated or before?
I think it was right about that time. Like, I think maybe after they told me I shouldn't be coming to the office anymore, but before they formally decided to terminate me, if I remember correctly, and honestly I don't.
In that Hodges letter, Mr. Hodges states that there were things in your office dealing with your everybody.
Okay, I'm going to object based on relevance. What does this have to do with this case? What does this have to do with whether or not what you charged me with is true or not?
Okay, I note your objection. Your answer is?
Well, what was the question?
The question is, in the Hodges letter, he mentioned that they discovered certain things in your office dealing with the Everyone Draw Muhammad blog that you were publishing. Can you describe
I
this?
may have left something in my office like that, yes.
Did you blog on the Everyone Draw Muhammad blog during work hours?
Never.
Did you accept emails from people during work hours for the Everyone
I
blog?
get emails from everybody whenever they send me emails. I can't block an email. What are you talking about? I can't say I'm not going to receive an email in my inbox. I can't prevent an email from coming into my inbox.
So what was found at your office? He said that there was.
Let's see here. There are lots of my law books.
I'm asking regarding the Muhammad blog.
I don't know what he found anymore. It's again 4 years ago, Brett.
So, do you believe that you were fired for the reasons stated in the Hodges letter?
No, I do not. I believe it was because of you. They said to me, I could come back when the Brett Kimberlin situation was resolved. They were terrified of you, Brett. And I feel every bit of compassion for the fear they felt. I don't hold any hate in my heart for them for firing me. Needless to say, I didn't want to be fired. Nobody wants that. But I don't have any resentment. I understood exactly where they were coming from. And they were coming from a place of true human fear.
But
you create fear, Brett. Do you understand that you create that?
Did Mr. Hodges ask you to post something on your blog that said that you didn't work there anymore? On your Draw Muhammad blog or any blog?
Well, at that point, the Draw Muhammad blog was defunct. And as far as my normal blog, Allergic to Bowl, he asked me to say some kind of announcement to the public. I didn't want to do that, and so I said, you know, he made he was claiming they were going to have these massive protests or something like that, you know, and I'm guessing because you called him or something like that, because you do that all the time. You did that, for example, with the piano club. I forgot what they call it. That where we were going to have blog bash. You called them up, according to reports, and said, oh, there are going to be these massive protests by Muslims, always Muslims, you know, not terrorist sympathizers or anything like that. And then you showed up in a Muslim head wrap for some reason.
Did you ever call the Prophet Muhammad a terrorist or a pedophile? Or
I've called him a pedophile because according to Islamic tradition, and again, I have to object to this being on relevance, but according to Islamic tradition, he married his 4th wife, Aisha, when she was 6 years old. Now you might say, well, maybe he just married her. Maybe he waited to consummate it. And according to the same tradition, he did, until she was 9. I consider that horrifying. And I've known people, for example, who claimed they were Muslims at one point, learned this story, and said, oh my God, I can't follow this guy anymore. And so talking about that story is essential to freedom of speech and freedom of religion. The freedom of religion includes the right to choose your religion. And that includes the right to criticize other religions, to talk about information that maybe other people in the religion would prefer you didn't talk about.
Did you?
It includes all those things.
Did you
And
call
so
it?
I was standing up through this Everyone Draw Muhammad thing for the right of freedom of religion and freedom of speech. People have the right to say whatever they want about Muhammad, even if it's wrong, even if it's unfair. I will note, I don't believe I call him a terrorist because I haven't researched his tactics enough to determine if it's terrorism.
Did you post pictures of Prophet Muhammad with a KKK or Nazi?
I said to the public, you can send in whatever pictures you want to participate in this protest. We were protesting the way that Islamic terrorists were saying, if you draw Muhammad, we're going to kill you. They said that to the people who created South Park. They said that to these cartoonists in Denmark. They said to numerous people, and we were standing up for freedom of speech because we believe that they should not be able to bully people into doing things different than they want. Now you look at, for example, that Pulse nightclub shooting. What are those people supposed to do to avoid offending Islamofascists? What are they supposed to do to avoid angering the terrorists? And that's a rhetorical question. I'm not asking you to answer. But what I'm saying is, are they going to have to suddenly not be gay anymore? How many things do we have to give up because a terrorist might kill us if we don't obey their rules? We don't have to obey their rules, and that's what the protest was about. We don't have to obey their rules. We are going, and so when they tell us, draw Muhammad or else we'll kill you, and you have a few isolated people who are terrified, such as Salman Rushdie, such as Theo Van Gogh, then we're all going to step up and we're going to do the same thing. And we hope then that the terrorists will have so many targets that they will despair of ever hurting everybody, and they'll drop this silliness. And they'll start recognizing that freedom of speech exists, that you shouldn't give in to terrorists, even when he's sitting right across from me at the table.
So were some of the pictures on the Draw Muhammad blog of Muhammad having sex with animals?
Might have been, but I had only two rules. One, it couldn't be actually pornography. And the second was it had to clearly identify Muhammad, because that's the whole point of the protest. And other than that, I let anybody submit anything, and some of these things offended me. Some of these were offensive to my Christian faith. And I published it anyway, because the point was to just get as many people to participate in this, as many people to stand up. It was like, it was an I am Spartacus moment, where instead of allowing them to single out these couple isolated people and therefore terrorize people into silence, we said we're all going to do the exact same thing so that they will understand that they can't push us around. And I know you sympathize with those who want to push people around, but most people do not.
Could you define the meaning of fatwa?
Fatwa is a religious edict in Islam, and it can be a positive thing or a good or a negative thing. It really just depends on who's putting it out.
So did you ever ask people to make sure that their cartoons that they sent to you were fatwa worthy?
It was a joke, yes.
Did you also...
Because after all, there was a famous fatwa against Salman Rushdie. I think the last I heard, the price on his head was $5 million.
Did you ask people to come to Manassas if they want to behead somebody and behead you? Or
it was facetious, Brett. It was, at that point in time, I was writing under a pseudonym. I was introducing two other people who would help write at the website. Okay? I wanted them to chase a ghost. So I said, if you want to come at me, come at me. You know, don't yell, don't go after these people, come at me. And to this day, you try to treat this act of misdirection, and to the extent that it might actually put me in danger, somehow wrong or evil. When what I'm trying to do is say, if you're going to hurt somebody, hurt me. And most people think that's a self-sacrificing thing, but I guess you think that's bad.
On your Muhammad blog, did you ask the people that submitted their drawings to use their own name and their own address?
Yes, I did. And like I said, as I said at the first time we discussed this, okay, it was a situation where whether or not I fully put my life at risk was not simply a decision for myself, but it was a family decision, me and my wife and I. And I talked to my wife about this, and simply put, she wouldn't agree to this. And so as a result, I wasn't free to give my full name. Because again, this is a family decision. But honestly, I always wanted to put out my real name. It didn't ever upset me to put out my real name. It only upset me in the sense that it upset my wife.
So, you claimed on that blog that you asked people to come to Manassas and engage in a gun battle with you?
No. I did not ask for them to come to... No, what it's saying is we're ready to fight back if you dare do it. Saying don't do it because we will be able to defend ourselves, it's not saying I want a gun battle. It's really the opposite. It is don't do it because you will lose. Because you will lose your life. So when you say I'm going to defend myself, you're not saying you want to defend yourself. You're saying you're willing to prevent the need. Do you understand that, Brett?
So didn't you say that you would invoke your Second Amendment rights?
That's what it means when you say you're defending yourself. I believe what I said, and I could be wrong, again, 4 years ago, but I believe what I said is that we practice our Second Amendment rights in Virginia. And we do. We have open carry for pretty much anyone who's otherwise not prohibited, and we have concealed carry is pretty easy to get as long as you pass a background check, which I have, and as long as you demonstrate a basic competence with the gun.
So, would you consider the use of a pseudonym and telling people on the blog that your name was Aaron Worthing when it was actually Aaron Walker? Would you consider that a lie?
No, there's no considering. It was a white lie. And the purpose was I was trying to get people to join this protest. I was trying to get people this thing going. We had seen one Facebook site after another get shut down by a biased website. They just, and in part because they just didn't want to get blocked in other countries. And that was what was happening at the time. Pakistan entirely banned Facebook, possibly permanently. And they were afraid of that being passed on. And so I got angry with how that was happening. We had set this protest for May 20th, 2010. And in that protest, we were asked, it was everybody does the same thing that these guys have done. Draw their own pictures of Muhammad. Mine was just simply, it showed a picture of Muhammad sitting on a toilet that was labeled terrorism. It was literally saying Muhammad poops on terrorism. And I mean, that's juvenile, and it was not a very good drawing, frankly. Technically it was really kind of a crappy Photoshop, is what you'd call it. But regardless of that, yes, and I was trying to get this thing going, and I said, I'm going to just tell a white lie. And as I said last time we brought this up, in the Kimberlin versus Walker case, that's why I did that. And you want to beat me up for not saying that my real name was, or something like that, feel free. And I said that to the same people who did that. I said, feel free if you want to be angry at me. Right. And you know what? None of them have ever said to me, you're a horrible person, we're angry at you for this.
Was the Everyone Draw Muhammad Facebook page stopped? Deleted?
There were two of them, as I understand. And of course, this is not something I personally witnessed, okay? So but it looked to us as observers that it appeared that one website had been shut down. It may have been shut down by the creators out of fear. That's one possibility. Or it may have been for other reasons. And then the second one got shut down. And it was about that time I said, I was just sort of frustrated. Well, then I'll do it myself, kind of thought there. And so, I created my own blog. It was only participated by 800 people. There was another Facebook page eventually created that had 100,000 people participating. So 800 versus 100,000. And, and I did my bit for freedom, and I'm not ashamed of this.
Have you ever received any death threats or on your contact page at Muhammad or on your emails because of that? Have you ever worked for any kind of government agency as a honeypot or informant? Is that
No, I've never worked for, let's see here. I was going to say I never worked for a government agency, but I did work for a public defender a long time. I think that would count. And I also worked for a legal services organization, but I've never worked for the FBI, any kind of law enforcement, espionage, anything like that.
Have any of those law enforcement agencies contacted you about the Muhammad blog?
There was a Fairfax County detective who contacted me after you sent a letter to the police informing them that your conduct in court had created a danger for me. I believe you said there existed a very real possibility that Aaron Walker could be killed or severely injured, or his wife, or his neighbors, or his co-workers because of what you had done. You specifically had done putting my name out as connected to this blog. You had confessed in that letter that what you did put my life and my wife's life and my co-worker's life and my neighbor's life in danger. This is what you said.
Has anyone in law enforcement ever asked you to refrain from your activities under Muhammad?
No. I don't recall them ever saying that.
So no one from the FBI ever talked to you about that blog?
About the blog? Not really. I mean, they in general, sort of like, what was your blog about, etc. We'd have a discussion like that. They didn't go, oh, you should stop doing this. Because you know what? It's not their business what I say. There's a thing called the First Amendment. Okay?
Now,
the First Amendment guarantees the right to freedom of speech and freedom of religion. You know what the cop's job is? Is to protect you if someone's going to attack you for doing that.
Now, you said you talked to law enforcement officials.
Yes.
And have you talked to any law enforcement officials about Brett or Tatiana Kimberlin?
Yes, I have, but I will not discuss the contents of that without a court order because, or at least without them having a chance to object, because there are continuing investigations that I do not wish to interfere with.
And what agencies did you talk with? Or what officials did you talk with?
I'm not going into that for that reason.
Can you tell me when you talked with those agencies?
No, I'm not going into that. I mean, look, it's not a secret. I've talked to law enforcement about you. After all, I did get swatted. Okay? So it's not a secret that I did.
Are you aware of whether that's...
And I should pause and define swatting for the benefit of the record is when a person makes a false call to 911 reporting a serious crime in someone's house in order to invoke a severe police reaction, ideally a SWAT team, which is why it's called swatting. And in my particular case, what someone had done was call up and claim to be me and say, I just shot my wife. And as a result of that, several officers with M4s showed up at my house and just to make sure that this wasn't true. I mean, I suspect they were very skeptical to start with. But that's what had happened. And now it happened on the very same day that a restraining order you had asked for to silence me was lifted.
Next question. Are you aware that the swatting investigation has been closed?
I don't believe it's closed. In fact, I hear they got one guy for it, and they're still looking for co-conspirators.
Now, you allege damages in this case. Are you alleging financial damages?
I alleged opportunity costs, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's in the affidavit.
If you're alleging damages, are you making more money now or less money than you were last year?
I don't know.
Have you received any money from donations through your website or from other people?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that question. I object based on relevance, and it'll invade the privacy of others.
I'm not asking from whom.
I'm
asking whether you...
I got some donations from others.
Okay. And...
I also got payment for services rendered from others.
You're talking about for legal services?
Yes.
So how much money in donations generally, not specifically, but generally, how much money did you get in donations between 2012 and 2015?
Trying to think. Honestly, I think maybe around 2,000 total. And that, was it, you said from 2012 to today? Yeah, that's the best guess, but I'll be very blunt, that's not a very exact guess.
So when you file your 1040s with the IRS, do you claim the donations?
I claim all income from all sources whenever I file taxes with anyone, Brett.
Have you filed taxes in 2013
Yeah.
and 2014?
Yes, yes.
And 2015?
Yes.
So you said you've had actual dollar losses in this since.
I said opportunity costs. I had to
and-
spend time dealing with your stuff and took away from dealing with mine. And most of that was in reference to your wife's charges, although you do seem to participate in those charges.
So you've gotten donations. You said at least $2,000.
In 4 years, yes.
In
I'm a
4
rich,
years.
rich man as a result.
I thought that I read somewhere that the National Bloggers Club gave you a donation of more than $2,000.
Did they? I don't remember anymore.
Am I incorrect about that?
Well, and I mean, you were asking since 2012, and maybe they gave it in 2012. I tend to think that's more likely what happened. So they might, they may have, I don't even remember what the amount is anymore. I mean, again, you're asking about dollar amounts 4 years ago.
Now, you said a minute ago that I stalked your wife.
Yes.
What is your wife's birth name?
Mary Catherine Dubravo.
And so she also uses the name Karen Walker?
Yeah, like many Asian Americans, Brett, she uses nicknames. And she didn't change her maiden name because, frankly, it's a pain in the ass. So, yeah, so she goes by Karen Walker because she's married to Aaron Walker. And she's gone by Karen since she's a kid. She also has some other weird nicknames. Sometimes they call her Kathy. You should have seen the checks we got at her wedding. We had all these weird names. I didn't know what came up with. And I was like, are they going to cash these checks at the bank? And they know me. Okay.
So she uses a lot of different names.
Like many Asian Americans, it's a common thing, Brett.
So where were you on the day of your alleged swatting, since we've brought that up?
I was home.
Do you know who committed the swatting?
Again, you're getting into the details of the investigation, and I'm not providing any to you until or unless the police say it's okay to talk about it. I mean, if they say it's okay to talk about it, I'll be happy to talk your ear off about it. But in the meantime, I want them to be able to have a chance to object.
Okay. Did you initiate the call, or know who initiated the call to the police on that day you were swatted?
No, I have no idea. I did not initiate the call. As far as knowing who might have, that might reveal investigatory details, so I can't answer that question. I can tell you this much. I have no belief whatsoever it's some kind of hoax, as I know you and your crazy friends tried to suggest. Someone really did this, really to try to harm me. Someone literally tried to get me killed on the same day you lost in court. I'm sure that's a giant coincidence, right, Brett?
Have you ever attempted to, or made reports to Twitter complaining about anyone else's Twitter account other than your own?
Well, first off, I've never complained about my own account. I don't understand that theory. But yes, I have submitted complaints about people on Twitter. Sometimes people get out of line. Rosie O'Donnell, Roseanne Barr, for example, posted George Zimmerman's home address, and I sent in a report on that. I thought that was horrible. That's why for example, even as much as I dislike you, Brett, I've never published your home address.
Have you ever asked Twitter to shut down any accounts?
Yes, for example, when your friend Bill Schmalfeld invited people to come to my house and harm me, and said he'd give them my address, I suggested that person should have it shut down. That's an example.
So, you've complained that other people have tried to shut down Twitter accounts on First Amendment grounds. But,
Yes.
But you're okay with shutting them down yourself or complaining about them?
So, yes, based on genuine incitement of violence. I mean, again, did you ignore what I just said? He tried to get people to come to my house to hurt me. Or my wife, possibly.
How many?
You don't think that's a reasonable restriction on speech for Twitter to say, hey, we don't want people who do that on their platform? And he has, by the way, 9 restraining orders in different states for stalking various people. 9 of them.
Have you ever attempted to file peace orders against people claiming that they are harassing you by talking to you about you or mentioning you on Twitter or other social media?
I've talked in Galloway versus State. They very clearly held that unwanted contact, which is something I never do with you, unwanted contact is a form of harassment. And after Bill Schmalfeld not only engaged in unwanted contact, but also made his threat about the Ides of March, after he did that, then I said, this has crossed the line into harassment. And I sought appropriate remedies for that. Again, your associate, your admitted associate, in fact, you called him your friend.
So you've attempted to criminalize his speech.
Not all speech is legal. I can't go and threaten the President of the United States. Okay? Do you understand that? But on the other hand, if someone defames Obama, guess what? That's legal.
Next question.
Okay? No, but this is an important point.
No.
So you seem to think that, free speech is either you can say and do absolutely anything or nothing? It's not like that. There is a line, and the line is things such as threats.
Did you,
True incitement under Brandenburg versus Ohio.
all right, did you ask Patrick Fry to help you when you were charged with assault?
I don't know if I specifically asked him to help me. I know he did. I just don't remember if I asked him, honestly.
And speaking of that assault,
No assault occurred, Brett.
speaking of that incident in 2012, did you approach me?
Approach you in what sense?
In the court vestibule and make physical contact with me and take
In the vestibule.
in the court waiting room, whatever you want to call it.
Well, no, there is a difference. The vestibule is that area between the 2 sets of doors. That's a very specific place. There's also outside and what happened was you, as you admitted, illegally attempted to take a photograph of me in the courthouse. I, knowing that you're a convicted serial bomber who had a malicious streak a mile wide toward me, I didn't know what you're about to do with this device. So I determined that I needed to defend myself. And so I defended myself as gently as possible by taking the iPad from you. And that's all I did. And for 4 years, you've acted like as if this is the Valentine's Day massacre or some silliness. You've claimed I'm the muscle in a supposed mafia. I mean, good Lord, look at me. Would anybody think I'm the muscle in any group?
I asked, did you make any physical contact with me?
No, I did not. I made physical contact with your iPad.
So you took the iPad.
Yes, I've always said that.
You approached me and took the iPad.
As you attempted to legally take a picture in reasonable fear of my safety, because again, you're a convicted bomber.
So isn't it true that you stated that you thought the iPad might be a bomb?
I said I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a bomb or what the hell. But given that you set 8 bombs in 6 days in your youth, I didn't know. Every possibility flashed through my mind. And again, this was a split-second decision. And people can reasonably criticize, oh, well, you know, maybe, you know, you should realize there's no way you could have gotten through security and all that. Maybe so. But that's great kind of thought to have when you have time to think. When you don't have time to think and you have somebody doing something nefarious, you have to ask yourself, do I trust this person not to be violent? And I don't trust you, Brett, not to be violent.
Have you ever attempted to have me put in jail?
I have filed charges with you that would probably have that result. More like prison, but whatever.
Okay, prison, jail. Have you tried to have me arrested?
I did not specifically ask you to be arrested. Whether they chose to do so is their decision. I don't think many people get arrested for perjury. I don't think they get, I don't think they get arrested for obstruction of justice unless it's a particularly violent episode of obstruction of justice.
Did you ever have any improper physical contact with Tatiana Kimberlin?
No.
Did you ever touch her?
I'm not sure I remember if I ever did. Well, I do remember now. One time after you had made your own wife cry at a hearing, I came over her. I wanted to keep my distance because I didn't want you to suddenly drag me into that whole thing. But I had human compassion. I put my arm around her and said, "It'll be okay. We will get through this. We'll get you a lawyer soon who can represent you. Things will start getting better." Okay?
Have you ever discussed her breasts?
No.
Okay, I'm going to show you.
I don't recall any instance of discussing your wife's breasts.
On July 10, 2013.
Is this going to be an exhibit?
Yes, it is. I have it.
Okay, well, let's put it into identification, Brett.
I'm going to identify this as Exhibit A. On July 10, 2013, I'm going to read. Did you receive an email from Robert McCain? It says, quote, "How soon is Aaron going to get those Kimberlin versus Kimberlin and Kimberlin versus Elliott court documents online? Readers are salivating for those sordid, tawdry, and let's hope nearly pornographic details. You know,
That's Stacy for you.
You know neutral, objective journalism." And you wrote back a few minutes later, boom, it's up.
That's what you say?
Just want you to take a look at that. Did you ever?
I don't remember writing this. In fact, I don't even know, bluntly, I don't even know how you would even have this.
Would be surprised.
Oh, I'd be surprised. And but like I said, I don't remember writing it. Now notice, this is a heavily redacted document here.
Did you, I'm getting to another email received on August 4th, 2015. Are you familiar with a man named Ken Ashford?
Yes, in general.
Did he go to school with you?
No.
Do you know him as a lawyer?
I know he is a lawyer, or at least I strongly believe it to be true.
Did you receive a comment on your blog that says, quote, "You've gone really skeevy, Aaron. It's laughable when you say you could care less about Kimberlin's daughter, when you seem to have screen caps of her, an obsession with her breast, and you post pictures directing the reader to check out her cleavage. Moralizing perv, that's what you are." Did you get that? Remember that?
I don't recall getting anything like that. And it certainly sounds out of character because he hasn't commented on my blog for years. The only time I posted anything with her quote-unquote her cleavage on there was, was after the charges were filed discussing this matter. And I'll note, as a result of that, it's irrelevant. But when is that supposed to be written?
August 4th, 2015, and 103:45.
Well, I didn't receive a copy of that, as far as I remember.
Posted by Ken Ashford to
Now, yeah, ultimately, this is, ultimately, it's
So,
hearsay
gentlemen, we
information.
need to go one at a time, please.
And ultimately, it's hearsay information, Brett, so I object on the basis of that.
Okay. You stated in emails to Tatiana Kimberlin that you wanted to get our minor children removed from my custody. Is that true?
I remember thinking that was my goal, so there's a good chance I said it, but I don't remember the specific
Did you
conversation.
state that I was an unfit father?
Okay, so this goes back to where you're attempting to criminalize lawyering, okay? Guess what? Family law lawyers say that all the time. They tell their client what their opinion is of the situation, and they try to help them. I was helping your wife pro bono because I believed in her cause. And so, yeah, I said to her, I think you're an unfit father. You bombed a town for a week. You used to be a drug dealer. And I'm not even sure you used to be, if you know what I mean. And, by the way, according to your own wife, you were a pedophile. So, yeah, I tend to think maybe two young girls, especially one who isn't even genetically yours, shouldn't be in the same household as you. I think in any contest between you and Tatiana Kimberlin in determining who should be raising them, Tatiana is the easy choice because she didn't bomb a town for a week. And I'm allowed to have that opinion when I'm advising a client. I'm allowed to say to them, I really think this is a bad idea what you're doing. So you're trying to criminalize legal defense. She has a right to seek legal counsel. And you don't have a right to say it's harassment for somebody to help her. You said it's harassment for me to help Seth Allen when you sued him for supposedly harming your reputation? You said it was harassment?
Have you ever stated to Tatiana Kimberlin that you wanted to save the Kimberlin children from me?
I don't know. I don't believe I said something precisely like that. What I've always said is I think very clearly she is the better mother.
Now, you wrote a book once that you published online.
Again, relevance.
In that book, was the central character a superhero that saved women from evil and dark forces?
Saved lots of people, some of them men, some of them women, some of them Christians, some of them Muslims, some of them all kinds of different things. Basically he went by who's a good person or bad people. You know, sort of like any comic book superhero. And then, you know, it may be arguably cheesy and all that, but whatever, you know, no different than Peter Parker.
Now, as far as Kelsey Kimberlin, have you ever visited her Facebook page?
I don't specifically remember. If I did, it was in the context of preparing for litigation, which apparently you think is a crime, Brett.
What religion are you, by the way?
I'm a Presbyterian.
Now, was it your intention to have me put in jail and have my children with their mother and not with me?
One, I believe you've committed crimes that merit prison time. In fact, you've admitted recently to perjury and obstruction of justice by putting forged documents in this actual case, and then later admitting that you had done so, and you lied by saying that this was what you had sent me when it was not what you sent me, according to your own admissions. So yes, when you commit crimes, people will want to put you in jail or prison for doing that. It's kind of like saying, it's like kind of like faulting something from falling off a high height. Well, it's called gravity. It's what happens. And when you commit a crime, there are going to always be people who suggest maybe you should go to prison. You served 17 of 50 years that you could have served for those bombings.
Do you believe that my wife and I should go to prison for supposedly fabricating evidence?
I would be perfectly fine if she rolled over on you and admitted that you were the fabricator, given that you had also admitted to three, I believe it's three, no, I'm sorry, that was the third instance of fabrication. So if anybody fabricated the documents, I'm willing to guess it's you, since you admitted to 2 fabrications and you were convicted previously of fabricating documents. And in fact, according to the case reports, when you were caught with forged documents, you then proceeded to eat the documents.
So
I'd be perfectly happy if they went easy on her.
if they went easy.
And maybe just left her with, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of options for someone who had never committed a crime before, who maybe perhaps was acting under the influence of a lifelong criminal such as yourself. I mean, you know that you literally had your first criminal conviction the same month I was born. You've been a felon my entire life.
Did you help organize a donation campaign to help Tatiana Kimberlin?
Yeah, we did. And in fact, my friend William Hogue, i.e. John, even donated several $1,000s. He can tell you the exact amount if you ever ask him. But to hire a local counsel, Zoa Barnes, to help her. Defend against, by the way, your charges against her that she was a danger to her own daughters.
And didn't she tell you that she didn't want that money or that financial
She
assistance?
later decided she did not want that. The way she was explaining it to me was that her family from Ukraine had contacted her and that they felt it was shameful for her to receive charity of any form from strangers. And that was the way she was explaining it to me. Now, obviously, given subsequent events, I wonder how much truth there is to that. I can't certainly, I mean, it's hearsay, so, you know, who knows. But how she represented it to me. From my perspective, that's how I understood. And furthermore, she was telling me that she was going to go back to Ukraine and give up ever seeing her daughters again.
So, you've alleged that Tatiana Kimberlin has lied in her complaint
Repeatedly.
about you.
Mm-hmm.
And you state that she told the truth in her complaint about me.
Yes. I mean, your entire theory of the case is that Tatiana Kimberlin is capable of being manipulated into lying. That's your theory, but she's not doing it now. Okay, that's your theory. And my theory is that she was telling the truth the first time.
When you showed up at the court hearing
Which one?
in 2013.
Which one?
With Mr. Hogue.
Okay, which one?
In the Silver Spring courtroom.
Okay, which one?
Involving an attempt to get a mental health evaluation for Tatiana.
Oh, that's one of the things on the docket that day, yeah. I believe that was July 9th, but don't quote me on that.
Did you go to that hearing as a journalist?
I went to the hearing for several reasons. One, as a journalist, yes, I was interested. Also, on top of that, you have a habit of blaming me for everything bad that happens to you. When John Norton allegedly took pictures of the house, you blamed me for him coming there. You said, he lives in Fairfax and he lives in Manassas, meaning Aaron, you know, John Norton lives in Fairfax, Aaron lives in Manassas, therefore they live really close together and therefore they probably know each other, even though there's like something like 5 million people in Fairfax. And in fact, I did the math. At the time, you were living at your Beech Tree address, according to all the sources I have. And you actually lived 3 miles closer to Mr. Norton than I did. But somehow we lived so close together you thought you could assume that I had anything to do with what he did. Then, on top of that, then there was a guy named Martin Marr, I believe it was, who, you know, allegedly did something wrong with calling people on the phone, warning them about you and who you are. And you charged this person with, I forgot the exact statute, but it was essentially telephonic harassment. And in the application for charges, you claimed I had something to do with that too. No evidence, none at all, because, you know, Brett just puts in what he imagines is true, not what is actually true. And as a result, I see these peace orders back and forth between you and Jay Elliott, who I later found out was your wife's boyfriend at the time. Okay? And I also see a protective order that your wife filed. And so I wanted to see, well, what is Brett Kimberlin going to blame me for this time? And then on top of that, I wanted to keep tabs on your mental status, because I'm worried that someday you are going to get to a point where you're going to start laying bombs again.
So,
and it's a public hearing. And you tried to have me thrown out, and Judge Mitchell said, no, anybody can attend. This is a public hearing. You chose to air your dirty laundry before the entire public, not me.
so did you go as a journalist?
I just answered the question. I went as a journalist, I went as a person concerned that you're going to be blaming me for something else, and also concerned for your mental status.
So you never had any engagement letter with Tatiana Kimberlin?
No, you don't have to. I mean, you know how Patrick Estronic became my lawyer? We shook hands. I don't even know if she had an engagement letter with Zoa Barnes. I'm guessing he probably did, but you don't have to have one. As I told you in Kimberlin versus Walker.
Did you send Tatiana Kimberlin an email saying that I was not a fit father or an unfit father?
Well, I believe we just went over this. And again, you have bombed a town for a week. You used to be a drug dealer. You were caught impersonating a DOD officer. My God. And you committed how many forgeries in the last few years? We're up to 3 now.
Have you ever,
and your wife is telling me, and that very credibly, that you had seduced her at the age of 14, that you had brought her to Maryland and had sex with her at the age of 15. I should be clear, the 14 part was in Ukraine, okay, and I don't even know whether it's illegal there. And then you married her at 16 without the proper paperwork, by the way, which she said you pulled off by forging her birth certificate so she'd appear at 18. And then on top of all that, she's telling me also that you had said that Debbie Barton was your girlfriend. Now this is a girl that, according to Mark Singer, you met when you were 10 years old. Oh, sorry, when she was 10 years old. My apologies. When she was 10 years old and you were in your 20s, and you left her life when you got arrested for the Speedway bombings when she was 14. Okay? And you're calling this girl your girlfriend. And you're going off with her on trips alone. So there was strong evidence to suspect that you were also a pedophile. And you're saying you're the best person to raise her? That's absurd to me. And I am allowed, as an attorney, to tell my client, I don't think you're a fit father. I'm allowed to have that opinion. And I'm allowed to share that with my client.
How many weapons do you own right now?
2.
Does your wife own separately?
No, she doesn't own a gun. I mean, bluntly, anything I own, we own together.
Have you posted posts or articles about her shooting guns?
Yeah, she once had, literally, I believe it was the day after you stalked her, she went to the gun range to practice. Because she wanted to get better at it, because she didn't want to feel that terrified again. You terrorized my wife. She was crying for an hour after what you did to her. See, you talk about leaving your daughters alone, but you don't leave my wife alone. That's what kind of bastard you are. And you probably get off on how you terrified her.
Is your wife a legal resident of the United States?
Yes.
When did she become a legal resident?
I don't know. I presume it was sometime during the Reagan administration.
How long has she been in the United States?
Again, my understanding is she came over sometime in the Reagan administration, and that's it. Hasn't gone back since. And if, for the record, back is the Philippines.
So was she in the Philippines in 2001?
Nope.
Do you,
I mean, are you really trying to pretend that document is genuine, Brett? Do you really think a lot of intelligence agencies can't spell the name of Abu Sayyaf? Are you going to sit there and say that with a straight face?
have you,
It's a cheap forgery, Brett.
have you ever posted or stated that you check for bombs, or your wife checks for bombs under your car?
We both checked for him because we angered a serial bomber. Again, do you have any self-awareness here, Brett?
Did you say that your wife checks for bombs with a mirror?
We both check for bombs using the same mirror.
So,
It just depends on what day. Sometimes she's the first one to go out in the car, so she checks.
so you do this every day?
We do it every time we start the car.
Does she have any training in bomb disposal? Or?
No, but I mean, you only have to see if it's there, Brett. And if you see if it's there, then you call the experts. You call 911. There's nothing dangerous about that.
Have you ever called 911?
Over a bomb?
Or, yeah, anything?
Well, over anything, I'm sorry, I've called 911 over lots of things. I've had people, cut me off in traffic so badly, it was a very truly dangerous situation. I've called 911. I saw a situation where it looked like a man was beating his girlfriend, and I called 911. But I've never called 911 suspecting a bomb, if that's what you're getting at.
Okay. The website Kimberlin Unmasked, do you know who runs that website?
No, I don't know who runs that.
So, I showed you earlier a tweet where you said that you would take discovery from my children and their
I
friends.
predicted discovery would happen, yeah. If you dared to sue us, yeah.
And Kimberlin Unmasked wrote something very similar. Are you familiar with it?
I don't know, and honestly, of course, I can't authenticate any of this. And I don't, let's see here, September 13. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, it's an obvious thought. This is basic litigation 101. But of course, at September of 2013, that would be at the time where you were alleging that Lynn Thomas and Peter Malone were Kimberlin Unmasked. In fact, you filed 3 lawsuits alleging that either her or Mr. Malone, or a combination of both, were Kimberlin Unmasked. So you seem to already know who they are.
Are you familiar with the Kimberlin Unmasked website? Have you ever been there?
I looked at it a couple times.
Are you aware that
What of it?
the headline, the picture behind the headline is a picture of my house?
It is.
didn't-
Well, let
I
me
didn't
answer
know.
properly. If it is, I didn't know. I don't think I even remember seeing that until you handed it to me in discovery.
Did you, on October 26, 2013, state, by the way, if McCain and Ali can get people arrested, could they get off their butts and get Kimberlin arrested already?
It was a joke. It was, someone had put out the claim that they could get anyone arrested they wanted. Again, you have terrorized me and my wife. You stalked my wife. Okay? You're a convicted serial bomber. We check under our car for bombs because we are afraid of you. And so, yeah, I made a little joke. Could they get off their butts and get arrested already? Ha, ha, ha. Okay, whatever.
Now, you've admitted previously that you posted many graphics of me on your blog and on Twitter.
The pedo bear.
And,
Yeah, and that was found to not be putting you in a false light by a court of law. Because when you sued us claiming that we put you in a false light or we defamed you by using images like that, by calling you a pedophile, they said you had offered no evidence whatsoever that we were not telling the truth.
in Did you, on June 11, 2015, write a tweet that said, quote, seriously, hashtag Brett Kimmerlin is claiming that saying he is a pedophile harasses his daughter somehow. Do you remember that?
I don't remember writing that specifically, but it goes to the ridiculousness at the center of this case. I mean, Richard Nixon had daughters. So did Woodward and Bernstein harass Richard Nixon? Bill Clinton has a daughter. Does that mean that Matthew Drudge, by publishing the Monica Lewinsky story, harassed Kelsey Clinton? I don't think so. You know, the fact is journalism doesn't stop just because someone has a child who might be affected by it. I mean, you think, for example, did any of the people in Enron have children? I can't imagine how horribly those children must have been treated. But we can't stop journalism just because we're afraid someone might be harmed. What you do is you take steps to mitigate it, as I talked about before. So, for example, I have never put your daughter's name on my blog. I've never put her face in the blog knowingly. Now, you say that I accidentally included in the picture. When this case is over and there's no concern for spoliation, I will block out her face from that. Whichever one you want to say is her. Okay? I'm happy to do that. I try to leave your family out of it, which is what my whole post about how we reject the corruption of the blood was about. Was about how we try, my problem is with you and nobody else. I mean, I'm a little upset at your wife now for lying about me, but I also believe in my heart that you were at the heart of all that. You drove her to do that. You said, sign this and we can shut them up finally.
Did you on...
That's my belief, mind you, but there you go.
On March 13, 2015, did you send a tweet that said, hashtag Brett Kimmerlin is very mad that his daughter can't have her friends over for sleepovers. He keeps saying that like it's a bad thing.
Do we need to get that?
Huh?
Oh,
That's later.
for Aaron Walker?
Yeah.
Okay, we are starting at 2 o'clock.
Okay, I have something.
Okay, hold on. We're supposed to be in room 5, but I don't care if they let us be in here or what. But whatever works for you, sir.
Should I set up in 5?
Yeah, that's probably best to do that because that's where I'm technically reserved.
Okay.
Give me 5 minutes with him. Sorry, and I will give you the 5 minutes back for your depot. I promise. I mean, our thing is scheduled to end in about 12 minutes, so it'll be 17 if you want to go that long.
So I asked you about this tweet.
Right. Yeah, I remember writing it, and yes, I mean, again, I am of the opinion that you're a pedophile. So I don't think it's a good thing for other people's children to be around your daughters. I mean, for example, you talk about sleepovers. Why can't they sleep over why can't your daughters sleep over at another person's house? Why do they have to sleep over at your house? Why is that so important to you, Brett? That's what I keep wondering. So yeah, look, we have, for example, official sex offender registers because we believe in warning the community. And you think warning the community is somehow a crime. Every parent deserves to know about what kind of person you are.
You spend a lot of time on Twitter. How many tweets do you do a day?
I don't know specifically. It depends also on how busy I am with other things. What social things might interfere. I mean, it could range from 100 in a day to 3 in a day. It just depends on, you know, what I'm up to.
Do you use Twitter to drum up legal business?
No, I don't think I've ever gotten a single job. Well, no, I should say, no, there's a couple people on Twitter who've asked for my help. Usually I help them pro bono because it's just a simple matter anyway. And there is at least one instance where someone wanted me to handle a little more of a technical thing and paid me a couple bucks for it.
Now, have you ever engaged in sex with anyone under the age of 18?
No. Sadly, not even when I was under 18.
Now, I wanted to go through this document here. Let's see, what is it? Let's see. Now, this document, which you have listed as Exhibit I, you said you typed this document. I'm not sure.
The typewritten part I typed. Of course, your wife wrote her own address here, and she signed it as, you know, and it looks like her signature as I've seen in the past. And she also wrote her own part of it. And I wrote all this based on what she told me. And what I said to her when I was sending her a draft, for example, of it, I said, tell me if anything is even trivially incorrect about this, because Brett will seize on that, and he will try to make you out to be some kind of liar.
And when she told you to take down the blog posts that you had because they were not true, did you take down those blog posts?
She said some of them were untrue, and I didn't know what specifically she was talking about. And I did, you know, and I just took the attitude of my reporting is solid. Her suddenly just changing her mind on everything after she very credibly told me it was true doesn't suddenly make them untrue. Are we going to label this as an exhibit here?
No.
Okay, well that's not proper method for deposition. Now you won't be able to know what you were asking me about.
Well, I'll get that.
All right.
Now, when you made these posts about Kelsey on your blog and on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
you did use a computer device to do that. Am I correct?
Duh.
Okay. That's a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no way to write on Twitter with a quill pen.
Now, could you state your age at this time?
My age at this time, I just turned 44.
Now, have you conducted any forensic analysis of any photos or videos associated with me or my family?
Forensic analysis? No.
Has your paralegal, Mr. Ho, do you know?
I don't know.
As far as like metadata and where they were?
I don't remember.
Have you sent people to our home to take photographs
Never.
of us or children or anything?
No. Why would I do that?
I'm not asking that. I'm
Well,
asking if you've ever
Why
done
would a normal person do that? I have no interest in having people go to your home and take photographs of you.
Were you
I know what you look like.
Were you involved with the Everyone blog about Brett Kimberlin Day?
I was the catalyst for it. See, when you got an unlawful peace order against me, an unconstitutional one that was overturned by the circuit court before they even had the full appeal. Judge Roop recognized so quickly it was so flagrantly unconstitutional. And by the way, the judge who did that has been officially reprimanded by the Commission on Judicial Disabilities in part for failure to follow the law. He disregarded Supreme Court precedent by name because you had this crazy theory that somehow if just writing negative things about you was incitement to violence, that somehow a person can't write a negative thing about a person without it being incitement. And so you got this protective order, and as a result, people were very upset, and they said, well, if Brett's going to go after everybody who writes about him, then we'll all write about him. And so these people did this on their own. And some people asked me how I felt about that, and I said to them, I can't ask you to do this. I'm asking you to anger a violent bomber. I can't ask you to, but I won't ask you not to either.
So it was similar to what you were doing with Mohammed.
Yes, very similar. It was people standing up to a bully and a terrorist. and you are a bully, Mr. Kimberlin. You use the instrumentalities of the state of Maryland to try to silence others. You sued me for calling you a terrorist.
Did you?
You for calling you a terrorist. You bombed a town for a week, and you sued me for concluding from that you're a terrorist.
Did you contact the police and tell them that my wife was at a meeting with Child Protective Services?
No,
Do you know anyone who did?
not that I know of, no. I mean, look, she had a boyfriend at the time who was pretty upset at you. Maybe that's where it came from. There's lots of people in the world who don't like you, Brett.
Were you present at a hearing before Judge Audrey Creighton?
I've been in front of her several times.
A peace order hearing involving your...
Yes, my
current
friend
legal
John
mistress?
Hoke. Sorry, William Hoke. Yes, and
Were you there when Judge Creighton said that people who bully Kelsey were engaged in child abuse?
I don't know if she quite said it that way. I mean, I would go back to the transcript itself and see what she said.
Did she say that people who did that may end up behind bars?
I think what she said was anyone who violated this harassment statute could end up behind bars, and that's just a true statement of fact. I mean, anyone who violates any criminal statute will end up behind bars.
Now,
You know, if anybody, I mean, bullying, you know, what does bullying mean to you? Will you define bullying? Because to me, when I was growing up, bullying meant either violence or threats of violence.
were you ever bullied at school?
Was I ever bullied at school? Briefly when I was a kid, and then I learned to fight better, frankly.
Now, you stated previously that that children, that adults should be able to say what they want about children, and that even if it causes them emotional distress, that they shouldn't, that shouldn't stop the adult from being able to say that.
What are you talking about as a matter of constitutional law?
I'm asking you if you've ever made that claim either in court or in a
So
filing.
now you're trying to criminalize constitutional law arguments.
I'm asking
Just
a
to be
simple
clear on
question.
this.
I'm asking a
Well,
simple question.
yes, and it's a disturbing question in its implications. That somehow taking a position in court is proof of a crime or something. The fact is, okay, teenagers get distressed very easily and very irrationally. In terms of manners, a good person tries not to do anything intentionally to hurt a child's feelings. I'll give you a practical example of this. The television show Saturday Night Live once ran a skit from Wayne's World, okay, where they listed the hottest girls ever. And number 2 was a then teenage Chelsea Clinton, okay? And they said, oh, Chelsea Clinton, she's a babe. No, and then they rag on this girl, and they call her a dog, and call her ugly in various respects. And from what I read in the media reports, someone from the White House called up Saturday Night Live and said, what are you guys, crazy? This is a teenage girl you're ragging on. You're destroying her feelings, her self-esteem. And ever since then, even in reruns, they literally skipped that whole joke. That joke, you can't watch it anywhere from my understanding. And that's an example of how manners allows people to regulate themselves. In terms of criminalizing, I think these statutes, I think Maryland's statute is hopeless in terms of how broad it reaches, how much behavior it reaches, its vagueness. I think it just doesn't.
So you've argued that you can say anything about a child, even if it.
Well, no, not anything. Not anything. You can't threaten a child. You can't
About a child. You can post anything online and say anything
about a child. Again, even if it's about a child, if it's oh, I'd really like to have sex with this child, that may get you in trouble. Okay, if it's stuff that's threatening and frightening, such as, for example, your friend Bill Schmalfeld photoshopping a skull over a baby's face. That is creepy and threatening and frightening, and that may very well constitute stalking of both the parent and the child, especially based on some states' laws where the stalking statutes are written much broader than they are, for example, in Maryland. So yes, it may possibly be outside of the protection, but simply, hurt feelings, because someone reported about their father, something that comes back and causes them to be made fun of. It's unfortunate, but you know what, Brett? You got to look in the mirror for this. You are the one engaging in all the behavior that brings this negative attention to yourself. As we just discussed, you got an unconstitutional restraining order put on me. And then you wonder why people are paying attention to you? Let me tell you something. You want people not to pay attention to you. The fastest way you want to get someone to pay attention to you is act like you have something to hide.
All right, we're done with this. It's 2 o'clock. And,
Okay, well, I did say you could have an additional 5 minutes, and you don't want?
I don't need it.
Okay. Is your wife almost here?
We off the record?
Yes.
Okay.